Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 189. I'm Van Burnett, joined as always by Steve Gesuele. We're taking a nice little step back here as you guys listen to this on Thursday, August 14th. I know we're in the throes of crunch time. I was talking, Steve, before we started recording about how I am in the playoff play-in match, essentially. But this is kind of a nice reprieve episode where we're going to take a step back and look out to the future of next year's draft season and look at the first round. One of the most exciting aspects of fantasy baseball is where you land in the first round. I know you got the whole KDS priority system and your NFBC leagues, and also just in leagues in general. You want to start looking at the landscape. And this time of year is kind of great because we've seen enough of the season where there's still some room, right, with about 6 weeks to go for people to change, for players to change their fate. But for the most part, we've got some actionable data to say this guy's a first rounder, or this is what the top 5 should look like. So we got a fun little setup. You did a great job with the rundown. Excited to get into it. I know we had to miss last week for extenuating circumstances, but great to be back, man. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. It's funny, right? Like what we in doing the show, there's like cycles to the fantasy baseball season, and you're always excited for the next phase, and then there's a little bit of burnout towards
Yeah.
the end. It's like, all right, like let's get this over with. Like, in a few weeks, like at the end of September, we'll be super excited to like break down and dig into research and get ready for off season analysis. Then by January, it's like, all right, let's get into the draft season. Then at the end of March, it's like, I cannot do another draft. Like, when is real baseball going to start? And now it's like August, like we did our schedule show, like there's playoffs happening. A lot of leagues are,
Yeah. Well, it's the
you know,
seasons
yeah,
of the league. Yeah.
yeah. And
So true.
now we're already looking forward to 2026 and draft season, right? It's funny. It's very much a grass is always greener type of thing. So, we do shows in the moment too and appreciate it. So this is always fun. Like, it's nice because there's no ADP here, right? It's just completely our thoughts and what we think is the first round, which is interesting because I think you're always sort of affected by, I know Grant Raswell, I reference this every year, but he's like, just because someone says a person is a fifth round pick in October, sometimes they get stuck there and it's not really worthy, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to just blindly follow ADP, and this is like the absolute opposite, right? This is just what we think. It's a balance too, right? Because you don't want to wait this season too heavily, which
Uh-huh.
you're bound to do on August 12th as we record this, right? So it's an interesting exercise. It's always fun. I'll wonder, once we get like a good amount of ADP, how different this is compared to what we think it will be.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be a little different. I know we differ in a few areas, which I'm excited to talk about. So, um, yeah, it's excited to get into it. I think we did this show around this exact time last year too. It's funny how that sort of works. It's like, all right, come on, let's talk about next year at this point. But yeah, interesting to see what your thoughts are, and excited to talk about who we think are the best players and worthy of those first round picks.
Yeah, and it's great too because these are a lot of the names that we don't get to talk about all that often unless it's like January, February, March. So yeah, and even then it's like, well, those are the first round guys. So yeah, this is almost the one of the main shows that we talk about the top 15 guys. But I like the setup that you took here, Steve, in terms of the formula. So we looked at ADP from this year, but then also looked at the Fangraphs player rater based on a 15 team 5x5 and a nice little stav sheet here where
Hmm.
we got the color coded looking at basically from the first rounders this year who has kind of solidified their spot that they belong in the first round for next year and who has fallen out. And then we'll get into newcomers. And then, like you hinted at, Steve, I tried to do a too early solve the puzzle.
Mhm.
Say this is what I think the actual ADP will be, because like you said, you can't just go up and down from the player rater this year. That's not how it's going to shake out. People are going to kind of have their own preferences based on either position scarcity or longevity and track record, things of that nature. So, yeah, without further ado, I think just taking a trip down memory lane to March of this year, we had Shohei Ohtani going 1-1. And he has been the number 2 player in 2025 so far. So Ohtani, no surprise, is a fixture here in the top 1 or 2, like he was this year. Bobby Witt Jr., who was number 2 in ADP, has not quite delivered to that degree, but is number 9 on the overall player rater. So I feel like, Steve, you're still happy with Bobby Witt, right? And he still belongs in that first round, no doubt.
The slightest of disappointments.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a few guys that are like this, but like 17 home runs, like it's a little bit disappointing,
Mhm.
especially after last year where he had a 977 OPS. Sure, the ISO isn't that far off, right? It was 256 last year, 207 this year. So 49 points of ISO isn't too crazy. Um but like if you look at it, he basically has half the home runs that he does now, than he did it next year. So he'll get closer. I'm sure he'll hit another 5 to 7 homers and have mid 20 homers, and it'll look pretty good on the year. But it's interesting because a lot of that OPS was made up in the 40 points of OBP rather than
Mhm.
you're basically half, right? It was half. The the power, I guess, isn't as disappointing as you would expect it to be, just considering on the ISO. But looking at it, he had 332 last year. That's why the ISO was relatively low, right? The difference in slug is close to 100 points.
Mhm.
It's just because the batting average was so high last year that sort of deflated the ISO artificially. Um,
Yeah, you're
the
pretty happy. You're pretty happy
Yeah,
with the 286 average. You're pretty happy with the 30
you
steals. I think
you
it's mainly
cannot complain about Bobby Witt. There is some things. It's like 4 points more on 5 points more on strikeout percentage. The pace of homers is probably going to fall 5 to 7 short. Right, the 100
Mhm.
points of slug is a little bit disappointing, but it's just a little bit disappointing, right? Under the hood, like the barrel rate's still 13%, really good. Hard hits in line with last year. It's only 7 ticks off, right? 41,
Right.
48.1, like versus 47.4%. Like it's
You're
it's good. Like
splitting hairs. Yeah,
you're splitting hairs. Yeah,
this is not a Bo Bichette like fall from
no.
the elite tier, if you will. And I think for a guy who's just 25 years old, that's part of where maybe a little bit of the disappointment comes in, is you kind of drafted Witt. Not only, I mean, we knew he wasn't going to hit 332 again, but I think you saw the 32 homers, 31 steals, and thought to yourself, like, it has every reason where it could be even better than that. And I think the stuff under the hood still looks pretty good, other than the K rate climbing up a little bit. But overall, if you're drafting a guy in the first round, I think even if they deliver mid second round value, you're getting that high floor that you signed up for. And yeah, I mean, the next guy on the list is probably why you're a little bit frustrated,
I
because yeah, you
I
probably
don't
passed
think
on
Witt.
Judge.
I don't think Witt should go past pick like 4 or 5 next year.
Okay,
And if he
okay.
does, I think it's a steal.
Okay. So we'll get into that, but
Hmm.
the reason why you might be a little frustrated if you took Witt at 2 is because of what Aaron Judge has done, who
Hmm.
has been the number 1 player. We've talked about how really it's similar to Ohtani. We'll see what um, the home run race looks like. I know that Ohtani and obviously Cal Raleigh have started to pull ahead of Judge, but the 337 batting average is above and beyond expectations, and it puts him, in my opinion, kind of safely as the 1 overall player right now, just because average is kind of an overlooked category and one that's hard to recover from if you don't invest early on. So if you can get a 50 homer guy that is now you almost pencil him in to be like 315 as a floor just from hitting 322 last year and almost 340 this year. His XBA is, I know, at 303, but this is just such a bona fide hitter. And it seems like at age 33, that's not that much of a concern for the skill set that you get from him. I know it's been a little bit of a cold stretch in August here, but we would all be surprised if he didn't pick right back up the rest of the way. Any thoughts to add on Judge quickly as we kind of look at this? What was, in my opinion, a tier of Ohtani, Witt, and Judge coming into the season?
This is with an IL stint. He just came back from the IL last week. He was ice cold in the last week coming back from the IL stint, right? I believe he just DH'd. I don't think he's even been in the outfield yet as we record this on Tuesday night. He hit his first home run since coming back. So he's clearly playing hurt and, still doing what he's doing. I think he would be on pace to come close to the 58, 62 homers from 2022 and 2024. That being said, he is 34, next April. So next year will be his age 34 season. I don't think that, he's still my number one. Like, spoiler, I would still take him first overall. But it's just, after a year with no IL stints when he played 158 games, there was one this year, and it's been a slow bounce back then. Like, I think you have to start projecting an IL stint in his season, which is fine.
We did it for a long time.
We did for a long time, and I think that it's okay to do that again. I just don't know if we'll see the 158 games from last year, 157 from 2022. I would just project for more for
135,
140. Yeah. Which 140 of Judge is still, in my opinion, the best player. Maybe Ohtani could be better, but more thoughts on him in a second.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get to Elly De La Cruz, who is number 4 and is number 4 on the player rater. So that is exactly what you signed up for there. And similarly, J-Ram, who is going off at number 5, is also number 5. So
what consistent, amazing, like
it is
just like the perfect fantasy player from our generation. Like,
oh, dude. I mean, J-Ram is truly the metronome where like you can just bank it. Elly, it's encouraging to see because that is not kind of the moniker that you place on Elly that like, oh, you're going to get what you sign up for. It hasn't been to date. There was a little bit of that volatility with Elly, but now that we've seen him do that this year, and it's like, obviously last year was berserk with the 67 steals, but he's kind of matured a little bit as a player, in my opinion.
It's a very J-Ram like overall production the last 2 years in a way, right? Maybe not the same shape. Like the strikeout rate was higher last year, and J-Ram's had some of the best strikeout rates in the in baseball while doing this. So it's not the same way of getting there, but 119 WRC plus last year, 119 WRC plus last year, 809 OPS last year, 813 this year. There are some encouraging things too, right? Like he cut the K rate by 6% this year.
Yep.
He had 25 homers in 160 games last year. He's got 19 so far in 120. So maybe he'll, improve on those numbers, and it's slightly better. It's passable versus lefties, right? I'm looking at the splits last year versus this year. Is a 71 WRC plus versus lefties this year. Last year was 84, so a little bit of a downturn, but
hitting for average a little more though.
Yeah, a little better.
And
I want to look
against righties.
I want to look at the strikeout rate too. It's 31% this year. It was 31% last year. So still the similar struggles versus lefties, but nothing that's that like I don't know if he's on the precipice of like stop switch hitting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And another guy that we'll talk about who got pinch hit versus lefty recently. That's a potential first rounder. I don't think Elly's in that territory, but we'll get
I
to that
think
in a second.
the only thing to watch for Elly is for a player as young as him and as kind of raw still as Elly. I think it was the last year in May where he had his roughest month, and it was
Yep.
everybody was chattering
Mhm.
about it. It was like I think there was even talk about him being sent down and like figuring stuff
White hot
out.
in April, and then May was like, whoa, like
Yeah, it
yeah,
was like a
yeah,
550 OPS,
yeah,
and since then, he had put together 9 months of consistent baseball production. This month has been the worst month since then, so just a 178 average and a 413. So I would love to see Elly just obviously rebound and show that he's not as prone to those like mega slumps, but we're talking about less than 2 weeks, so it's super small. Overall, I think Elly, especially in roto leagues, whatever shape it comes, if he decides to steal 50 bases, or he's also the type that you wouldn't be shocked if he went on like a power binge as he gets older and closer to like power prime. But yeah, I think Elly, to me, it passes the smell test of like a top 5 pick, even with kind of the offensive context in Cincy. I think that kind of is a wash with the ballpark and everything. But what were you gonna add on Elly there, Steve?
yeah. I have him as my 3, as a little bit of
Okay.
a spoiler. So
Okay.
it just yeah, that's a pretty crazy analysis, and you wouldn't think it just with you know the up and down start to his career, that amazing hot April, the cold May, and then how consistent he's been since. That means something. Consistency, we talk
Hmm.
about it in the ATC projections with Ariel Cohen, like right there's that consistency score, right, of
Hmm.
like how much they deviate from their production, and how much that comes in like waves. To have that in a head-to-head league is also important, right? Like you to get
Yeah.
the shape of that production every single week is going to help you produce and be at the top of your standings. And then yeah, obviously for Roto, like yeah, Ellie's a game changer. Like um just 5 category stud. So
Yep.
yeah, pretty amazing that he's become like such a reliable fantasy asset this quickly. Especially given some of the concerns that like, yeah, it's like last year or 2 years ago, if we would have done this exercise, we were like, how high is Ellie gonna go? And like there's some people that think, yeah, the floor is minors, and it probably was at that point.
Hmm.
Um, but now he's like just basically as safe as they come as a top 5 pick.
Well, and
Crazy.
the beauty of it is the other side of the coin too, that you're getting that, kind of relatively high floor, but then the flip is it's still kind of a limitless ceiling, right? Like
Yeah,
if he holds some of the batting average gains and he decides to go back to attempting 70 steals, there is still very much a scenario where Ellie could rattle off a 1-1
yeah,
type of season, which is probably a nice segue to talk about J-Ram, because I think we're past the days where that's possible for Jose Ramirez. It's not what you sign up for when you draft J-Ram, and you have to tip your hat that this guy just does it year in and year out. I mean, when you look at like the back of the baseball card for Jose Ramirez, he has been since 2018 when and even before that, the 2017 year, he's 29 homers, 17 steals, and a 318 average. Like ever since then, you're talking about what, like 8 or 9 seasons in a row of just completely steady production. There was that one year where he had the most bizarre split. Maybe that was the 2019 year where he hit 255. I feel like it was more recently than that, where he was like ice cold for the first half of the season. But otherwise, you know what you're getting for Jose Ramirez, and it's almost always a great 5 category contribution where nothing is necessarily like best in the league, but across the board, you're getting an A minus in every single category. And I got to be honest, Steve, when I think about Jose Ramirez, to me, the age is kind of something that I'm like, oh, well, he's getting up there. He's been doing it a long time. He's got a lot of mileage, just can't continue. He's 32 years old. So maybe that's a little harsh. But I do think the vanilla factor for J Ram has and will continue to push him down the draft boards. Like I do not, and that's my spoiler. I do not have him going at 5 overall. Do you? Even though we're looking at back-to-back 5.
Yes, he is in my top 5.
Okay.
I may switch him with I have Witt at 5. I would probably go Witt over J Ram. But I wouldn't go lower than 5 with Jose Ramirez. My question to you,
Uh-huh.
is Jose Ramirez a Hall of Famer?
I think he is. I just feel like, one, he's not done. Two, like when you look around at how many people have been doing what he's been doing from 17 to 25, I think he only needs like 3 more seasons. We were all just talking about with Kyle Schwarber in our like home league thread, and we were like, he's in like the Hall of Very Good. And it seems like he would have to have like a David Ortiz type of production into his upper 30s to jump over. But I think Jose Ramirez, if he retired today, I would say no. But I think knowing that he's got the steady production for at least 3-4 more seasons where it might not be amazing, but it could be kind of like a Jose Altuve, kind of regression, but still contributing. I think that'll be enough to get him in there. What do you think?
I'm leaning yes. He's currently at 278 homers, 276 steals. So he'll get to 300. I don't know offhand how many people have 300 homers and 300 steals, but it's probably a pretty good list. 7-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, never higher than 2 in the MVP vote. So no MVPs, but it does have a bunch of top 5 finishes, a top 6 finish. So the fact that he never got one is probably a little bit difficult, and there's nothing really bold on his page other than some doubles, which on the baseball reference page, bold is, league leading category. So he's led the league in doubles twice, led the league in runs in the shortened 2020 season. And also some intentional walk leads there, just because it goes to show you how he's basically been the only person
Carrying the team.
Carrying that Cleveland Guardians team. So pretty crazy. He's already at 17 intentional walks this year, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, I think he needs to do it for a few more years, and I don't see why not. But it would be, he would need to fall off pretty hard for him not to be a Hall of Famer in my book. I mean, it's 13 years, so maybe there needs to be a little bit more, 2 to 3 more years of basically this production.
So here's the quick, and some of this is a little bit of a AI Google report out, but there are, let me see if I got the number right. 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 8 members of the 300 club in MLB history. 4 of them are in the Hall of Fame. But I think,
wow, who are the 4 that are not in the Hall of Fame that are in the
hold on a second. So it says the Hall of Fame members, Willie Mays, Andre Dawson, Barry Bonds, and Bobby Bonds.
Well, Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame, so there you go.
Well, there's the AI glitch right there. Yep. And then the other ones that they have, Reggie Sanders had 305 homers, 304 stolen bases. Steve Finley is in the 304 homer, 320 steals, and Finley's not Hall of Fame.
Not in the Hall of Fame.
A-Rod is easily
also not in the Hall of Fame, and he's not in the Hall of Fame, I would think.
Yeah. And then so Carlos Beltran, is he?
No, he is not, but close. I think he'll be in.
I feel like he'll get
relatively soon.
Yeah, and so Carlos Beltran is 435 homers and 312 on the steals. So yeah, J Ram would need another 150 homers. I don't know. I mean, that'd be 5 more 30 home run seasons. Like, I think he could get to 400 homers. The steals will probably dry up.
Yeah, I ran the stat head search of just 300, just to test AI. It's Bonds, A-Rod, Mays, Dawson, Beltran, Bobby Bonds, Reggie
Uh-huh.
Sanders,
Yep.
and
I
Steve
got
Finley.
this. Yep, I
Yeah.
got this is baseball reference on that one. The Hall of
Ye-
Fame was the AI.
yeah. You got the
So
baseball reference
they
up too.
they let us down. So
Yeah.
don't use AI when you're
Yeah.
podcasting, folks. Okay, well we talked about J Ram, Elly, Judge, Witt, and Otani. We're getting to more names and the newcomers to the first round discussion next year. We're going to take our first ad break. We'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, number 6 this year was Juan Soto, and Soto is another one that I feel like he was near the double digits at like 10, 11 before he really climbed up when he signed with the Mets and everything. His season player rater rank is 10. So Soto is also just kind of steady Eddie. I think that there's a little bit of the sheen is wearing like, you have to remind yourself that Soto's 26 years old because it seems like he's been here so long. And there was a time where he was like in the top 3 and 4. It's been an interesting year for Soto. The power is waking up a little bit where it was a slow start, but now he's at 28 homers, 18 steals, a 250 average, and an 873 OPS. This is good for Juan Soto. I think that we've said for a few seasons that he's going to do it in different ways. It's almost like the Bryce Harper thing, but he is still delivering top 10 production. So you can't complain too much. And I think that came with, some struggles, right? Like in May, he had a 219 average. July, he had a 210 average, but he had that mega 11 homer month in June. And yeah, it looks like he's going to end up with a little bit of a low average, but a really nice power speed season. So what do we make of Juan Soto?
Yeah, 18 steals. I did not realize that he had 18 steals. That's pretty
No?
crazy, and that's definitely buoying his fantasy value. Um, just because it is a slight disappointment as far as like OPS wise for Soto. I mean, 876. How many people can you say that's a disappointing season
Yeah.
OPS wise? I'm a believer and big on the first year of a big contract being tough for players. They pressed, especially what was going on early with Soto. And I think he's through that. I think he'll have another monster year next year and will be a steal. He is 7 for me for next year. So this looks a lot like the 2022 season when he was traded, and it was a little bit of a disappointment with Soto. And I mean, he already had more homers than he did have in 2022 when he had 27. So I think this will even out, and he'll put up another 900 plus OPS season next year. Maybe there won't be as many steals. Maybe this is just now sort of part of his game, but um, I would expect like 280, 35 homers next year, and him to be probably a top 5 to 7 pick.
Yeah, that's a good point. I probably got him low because I've got him at let's see, 9. So I think I could see moving Soto up because he is probably going to end up with like a close to a 35, 22 steals. And it's a good point that like the steals, his career high prior to this was 12, and most impressive is he's only been caught once. So we know that it's mainly about intent, and when someone's running a lot more on a new club, then that's a sign, in my opinion, that there's something that's tangibly different, and it's not just kind of complete random noise that it all worked out on the base paths. So he's running more, and yeah, he's not a 250 career guy. So I think his projections next year, might be the 35, like you're saying, and like a 280 guy. But I think I would be okay. Like if he keeps this up and he ends up with 23 steals, I don't think it's ridiculous to project him for like 14, which is more than we had planned on
Yeah, I
most of
would
his
I would say
career.
double digits. I mean, because now
Okay.
it's been it would be 2 of the last 3 years where he's hit double digits, right?
Mhm.
12 in 2023 18 this year. I think it would be. I mean, all the projections the rest of the way have him as at 4. So
So
yeah,
22 steals.
I think it's fair to project for 10 next year. Whereas this year you probably weren't projecting more than like 5.
Yeah.
So that's nice. I mean, especially for a guy that's like the best 4 category player there was, to be like a 4.5 or 4.75 categories even, to
Yeah.
throw in those 8 to 10 steals is pretty nice.
Yeah, for sure. So there's Soto, and then we got the first faller big time with
Yeah, let's
Corbin.
go. Let's go through a lot of these because there's some disappointments here, and then we could.
Yeah, we got to shift over,
I do
right?
want to focus on guys that we think are jumping in. Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. So Corbin Carroll, it was 7, and he is 29 on the player rater.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Tucker was 8, and while we had high hopes with the first half, has been 15 because he's been on this cold stretch. I
And
do
there
think
was an
that
injury
still,
there. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, but he has been he's cooled off quite a bit. But
yeah.
I think Tucker for the most part is still in that steady Eddie camp
Yeah. I would
that Jay ran with.
I think I would group him with almost like Witt, even of like the slightest of slight disappointments. Like like
Yes,
if
for
you
sure.
didn't know the shape of it, like you're maybe you're a little disappointed in Tucker because like in April it looked like he was on his way to being the number 1 overall player.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that same thing also happened last year, right? Before the shin injury. Like, all right, just give us a non-nagging
Right.
injury Kyle Tucker year, and you're probably going to get like a top 3 player.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to be pretty high on him next year. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yep. I'm in the same camp.
Yeah.
That's reflected in my list. And then
Man.
Gunnar Henderson, who yeah, I mean, he's had an IL stint. I know that that was at the very beginning of the season, but it's
Yes.
just been weird production all year. And we thought he was going to kind of bust out of it. It just hasn't been.
Yeah.
It's been good, but not top 10. And he's
Mhm.
been 57 on the player rater.
Disappointing for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, big time, big time. After we thought he was kind of
Hmm.
solidified there.
Hmm.
And then you got Vlad, who, it's a very Vlad thing for him to go 10. And then where he's at right now is 25th on the player rater. I think, he's wavered in his fantasy career, if we're going to call it that,
Yeah.
of like back of the first round, early, mid second round. I think he'll probably wind up in the same range.
Hmm.
And then let's also talk about Tatis, who is going at 12. I know, Steve, you were really high on that one. And
Hmm.
I was too, honestly, because it just felt like you were going to get the ceiling for free in a way, but we just haven't seen the ceiling this year. So, I think we're starting. I do think next year will be the first year where Tatis is kind of appropriately priced. Like there's enough exciting options around to where you're not going to be like forcing him into the top 10 or top 12. And I think the pitching landscape is going to influence that a little bit too. Then Mookie,
I think Tatis next year has potential to be a really, really good buy. There's a lot of improvements under the hood as far as like, this is the best walk rate of his career, the best strikeout rate of his career. That is with the second worst barrel rate of his career, right? At 11.5%. For worse, that's still what, 75th ish percentile. But you would want you dream of the days of him having the 19.5 and 20% barrel rate and pairing that with some of the plate skills, but maybe that's not happening. The hard hit rate still is really good at 52%. The max EV is down. Like that goes to show me that yes, maybe it is a little bit of aging, though it is like his peak seasons at age 26. But that goes to tell me that there's something taken off the top to not strike out 22% of the time, 28% of the time, 24% of the time, like he did in those amazing years. And he's still hitting the ball hard enough. It's just, the ground ball rate is just not what you want it to be. At 50.7%, that is by far the worst of his career, the lowest fly ball percentage of his career, lowest homer to fly ball rate of his career. So, worst pull percentage. So there is some sacrifice he's making to get to that K rate of just 18.6%. I just wonder if he could potentially marry the two, and if he does, when he's going in the second round, it could make people look silly. I'm a Tatis stan, like one of my
Oh, I
favorite
hear you.
players. So
I hear you.
I am looking through it with rosy colored glasses, but it's definitely been disappointing. Like I don't even know the last time he's homered, and his I want to say he had like 8 or 9 homers in April. Yeah, he had 8 homers in April, 5 in May, 2 in June, 2 in July.
Oh,
Has not homered in August.
oh, yeah. No, I'm with you, man. I mean, what we've seen from him, that like explosive package of power, speed, athleticism, like when Tatis is looking right, I don't think I'll ever be able to get over him or Acuna. And it's kind of sad that like too early in their careers, like 2 years ago, we would have thought Tatis and Acuna were going to be fixtures in the top 5 for like a decade. And now I think the exciting part from like a fantasy investment standpoint is that it does feel like finally there's going to be draft day discounts to like, buy the dip basically. Um, and Acuna is a much different case, obviously, with all the injury stuff. But yeah, for Tatis, it's like, where do you think? Do you think he'll be? Because again, looking at what he's done, hasn't been terrible. He's 32 on the player rater. Do you think he'll be like late second round? Does that feel right?
I think you'll be mid to early second, like just because of name value and potential.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That'll be a fun one to track. Mookie Betts will not be in the second round
No.
next year.
Yeah.
He is 110 on the player rater, and even that is, in my opinion, a little bit generous when you look at the line of like 12 homers, 8 steals, a 242 average. Um, it's just been rough for Mookie. I know it was a very strange start of the year with like him losing 15 or 20 pounds or whatever that was. And it was kind of like, he was sick. People lose weight. Maybe he wasn't lifting, but you were just kind of waiting for, again, a 32-year-old. He's a really interesting comp right next to Jose Ramirez because I think Mookie, people almost think he is Cooperstown bound, but his career numbers are not Jose Ramirez's, and they're the same age. And it looks like Mookie, he doesn't have the barrel rate, he doesn't have the bat speed. He's slowing down on the base paths. Like, this could be half of a podcast looking into what's happening with Mookie Betts, but definitely like his pull air rates have gone down, his ground ball rate has gone up compared to the past couple seasons. It's just been a weird, bad year, and it's like other than fastballs, like it looks like he's just really struggling to hit any breaking balls. A 175 batting average on those. I don't know, man. I know you've been fading Mookie for like a couple seasons in a row. Obviously, you're not cheering for anybody's demise, but do you see Mookie bouncing back to be like a fantasy stud, or is this kind of lack of underlying skills catching up with him a little bit?
I see him bouncing back to his 2024 pace,
Okay.
when he had 19 homers and 16 steals and 516 plate appearances and 860 OPS. I really think that, what happened early in the offseason with him, with losing all that weight, like, right? Like players talk about how much weight they lose throughout the season because it's such a grind. Just playing every day, traveling, playing every day, working out, staying in shape. Players lose tens to 20 pounds, just anecdotally, like, throughout the season. Imagine losing that base before you even start, moving to a new position, being elite at it defensively after he wasn't last
Mm-hmm.
year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think he also talked about how he spent most of the offseason focusing on that defense. So who knows? Maybe he was planning on getting that timing down in spring training and focusing on hitting, and that never came because he got sick, lost all this weight, and battling injuries. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see top 5 2023 Mookie Betts 39 homers again, but I definitely think we'll see. I think we should. I think we'll see first round Mookie Betts again.
Okay. Where does he go next year? Third round?
Third or fourth, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So with that thought, that sounds like that's another buy the dip type of situation. So we'll see if the industry fades him that far, or if the people are willing to give him a full on free pass as we get through the off season, because it was kind of a wacky year, like you pointed out, and with all the weight stuff. Okay, last one in terms of a very slight drop is Julio Rodriguez. Julio, when you look at it, he's put together kind of a Julio Rodriguez type of season, right? He's 23 homers, 22 steals. He's going to end up, at the batting average at 256. He's going to end up with, I think, a better fantasy season than we got from him last year. Still just 24 years old. So not sure, it's not the top 5 pick that he was a couple years ago, but I think he's definitely solidified himself as like a trustworthy power speed OF1, just maybe not, that elite league winning upside as like a top 5 guy that he was being drafted at a couple seasons ago. But what are your thoughts on Julio before we get into the fun topic of the newcomers?
I think it's been pretty good. Like 15th overall ADP, 16th on the player rater. And he's like in one of those patented hot streaks. I think it's just like, we may have to, and maybe this also goes for like the Tatis situation that I was talking about, like, and applies to that as well. Maybe just some of our expectations need to be adjusted a little bit. Like we're looking at that 2023 year and dreaming on it when he had 32 homers, 37 steals. Maybe it's like, okay, let's hope for another 30-30 season, which I think could happen this year. And just maybe, it won't be, someone that has the ceiling of like even like a Kyle Tucker or Elly, right? It's more first round oatmeal, which is, I mean that in the most complimentary of ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, mainly that comes from the volatility, that there's just up and down months. And you mentioned the patented hot streaks, but like it was early in the season, right? Yeah. April, where he hit just 202, 643 OPS, but then he heats up. And these guys are, baseball players. That happens. You go through peaks and valleys, but I do think J Rod is one that it's better peace of mind for a roto league than head to head, just because he's done this for a few years now. So yeah, that's that group. We're going to talk our newcomers and kind of get to our solve the puzzle end of the show, but we're going to take our second ad break and we'll be right back after this. All right. So Steve, it's time to talk about Cal Raleigh again, because he's just not slowing down, man. 45 homers, 13 steals, a 245 batting average, which is more than I would have signed up for. And Cal Raleigh, despite having, what was the ADP? We looked at it last show. I think it was like in the high 80s. I can pull it up
70s around. Yeah.
Raleigh 78. Okay, 78, and he has been number 3 on the Razzball player rater, or I'm sorry, the Fangraphs player rater. And it's worth noting that the dollar value from Judge is 44.5, Ohtani is 44.2, Cal Raleigh is 43.3, and then there's a $9 drop off to Elly De La Cruz. So when you look at Cal Raleigh and the catcher position, this is going to be one of the hottest topics of the offseason. And maybe not. Maybe you just chalk him in there. I have yet to even see where you put him, Steve, but based on position and just how real this looks, and him just being 28 years old, is Cal Raleigh a top 3 pick next year?
Where did I put Cal Raleigh? I have him at 8. I do not think I will have any shares of Cal Raleigh
But
next year.
what do you think the industry will do though?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
That's what I was going off of. And I honestly think that Raleigh is going to be number 3. Like, I think the first knee-jerk reaction is, come on, what are we doing here? It was, you're paying for a career year, but I think the more you look at just how dominant it was, a 19% barrel rate, and it's like, it's not like he didn't have an elite barrel rate coming into this, but then you look at, I mean, I guess the XBA this year is 239 and he's at 245, but like, you will take that if the power is real. And I don't think you're buying a 50 homer season, but if you're signing up for a 40 homer season, with how many games has he played as well?
Yeah,
117.
he's played
So
basically every day.
it's
Yeah.
available every
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I think that I could see the pendulum swinging back where a lot of people are like, no, Cal Raleigh, not only are you getting catcher addressed, but you're getting just an absolute power monster. The 13 steals is absurd, by the
Yeah.
way. We haven't even talked about that. And he got caught 3 times. So he's attempted 16 steals. Maybe you're right, Steve, but the auction calculator or the dollar value is just insane how big of a drop that is. And, a lot of that, even in a season when catcher eligibility or the catcher scarcity hasn't been the problem it has been in the past, I still think it's such a game changer if you've got Raleigh on your roster. So, yeah, thoughts on Raleigh. And then I did put him at 3. You've got him at 8. I hear you on not having shares, but absurd production.
I just can't buy what is so clear to me, like like I can't buy at the top. Um, so much of this looks exactly similar to his last year, was great. But and sure, maybe if he played um, the 7 more games, or you simulate that again, and there's closer to 45 homers than the 34 he had last year. I just find it hard to believe that there is going to be another season where he hits this many homers
What about
in this
the
short of
poll?
time.
What about the
Yeah,
poll air?
the pull percentage is interesting, but I think we also talked about how pull air and sweet
Mhm.
spot percentage is like, yes, those are great things, but it's also just an indicator of a hot hitter. And Raleigh, I think, is just someone that's been hot all year, and no doubt in my mind he will be the number 1 catcher next year. No doubt in my mind that I think he'll have, close to 40 homers again and be extremely valuable. I just don't know, as a catcher, how hard that is to do. And maybe the fact that I'm saying that is like, then what are you talking about? Take him top 5, um, just to get that at such a valuable position. I just can't do it. I think that he'll have seasons much more similar to 2022 to 2024, rather than this one, which is still really good, but in my mind, not a like almost not a first round pick. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm this. I could easily be getting cold take exposed here, but I'm buying the track record of the previous 3 years rather than this one.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, that if you look at 23 and 24, it kind of nets out a guy who's a 225 average, 32 homer guy. This year, the batting average at 245 is a 20-point jump from that average. And
Yeah.
then he'll probably round out with, I don't know, 53 homers, and you're getting 20 more. So, like, I think to justify it, you would have to say, okay, he is turning on fastballs. I mean, that's where he's been. That's the biggest delta is, yeah, he crushed fastballs the past 2 seasons. He freaking demolished them this year. And the bat speed went up a little bit. The pull air rate went up big time. Will the league adjust just because it's been such a big thing? Um, he is only 28. I think that the argument for him to be even a first rounder is he has to be 235 with 40 to 45 homers. In terms of average, the steals you're not going to count on. So you can throw that
And
out.
imagine. I just can't imagine starting my team with a guy that's basically sure to be a batting average liability.
Uh-huh.
Like batting average is the hardest thing to find. I know that having this at this catcher position is literally a league winner. Like, if you get Cal Riley this year, like you're probably winning your league. But I just see too much of a downside. I think I don't know. I've been selling him all year, and it's completely come back to bite me. Like, yes, 45 homers as we sit here on August 12th, but I just can't. I can't do it. Like, I will not. I will not take Cal Riley in the first round next year. I cannot. I cannot. I really don't think he'll get close to. I don't know. I tried to like lawyer my way out of this take in the beginning. Like, I don't see him having close to this year next year.
Yeah, and I think that I'm with you on that, like, especially on starting your build with Cal Raleigh. It's like you're getting a deficit on speed, you're getting a deficit on steals, and you're addressing a position that now has more talent than it has in 10 years. Um, but I think the industry might have enough people that are basically saying, I believe in the big dumper being like a 45, 50 homer guy. He's hitting peak prime and it's a catcher. Maybe 3 is too high. Maybe it will be more like 8. So you do still think he will be a first rounder, just you're not going to buy in there.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think he'll. I think he'll be end of the first round.
Okay.
I don't. I will not. I will not take him now. There.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see what his average does the rest of the way too,
Yeah.
because he will have the pop, but the average is an interesting thing. And I think his off season will have a ton of focus in terms of like, was it legit or not in terms of the power gains, because there's a big difference between a 34 home run hitter and a 53 home run hitter. So, okay. So that's Cal Raleigh. Other newcomers, PCA. We've talked about him all season. I think this doesn't have the savant bright red that usually people are drawn to, but I think he has the buzz in general that people believe in and are all about. Like, total firecracker. He's sitting on 27 homers, 30 steals, 258 average. PCA was drafted in like the 130s. I don't have it right in front of me, but season to date, he was 7th, or he is 7th in the player rater. I think there's going to be buzz with PCA. I think he's going to keep running. He's going to still hit some homers. I know he's going through another cold stretch as well, but he just gives me the I'm going out there to impact the back of my baseball card vibe.
Yeah. I get. Yeah.
To where I think he will end up this season with like 33 homer, 35, 36 steals. And I think that with the big market, all things, I think he will go middle of the first round next year. Where do you have him, Steve?
I have him at 9.
Okay.
Um.
That's probably fair. I think
Yeah.
that's a good point of swapping him and Soto, where I have Soto at 9 and PCA at 6. I was
Yeah.
probably letting the hype run wild there, because very little track record and doesn't have kind of the underlying stuff as Soto. Will you be interested at PCA at 9?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
think
You
so.
want to sit with it.
He is going through like the first slump of his season. Like you just got the underdog tweet that Armstrong in August, 3 for 37, 0 home runs, 0 RBIs, 0 walks, 14 strikeouts. Yeah, the smallest of small samples, and like this is literally the first time he's struggled all year. So like, whatever. He is the person that I hinted at that got pitch hit for on Sunday Night Baseball for a lefty. which was interesting, right? Like,
Hmm.
you don't want your first rounder being pinch hit when it's a left on left matchup.
Yeah.
He has been pretty bad versus lefties in this season. I mean, that's not the end all be all, right? We just talked about Elly. Like, you can still be a first rounder if you struggle. I'm one. So Elly's WRC plus this year was 71 versus lefties. Pico Armstrong's is 72. Um,
Mm.
so it's very, very, very similar. He does have 7 homers versus lefties too this year, which is not nothing. And like also like he plays such good defense that they would never ever sit him versus lefties. Sure, we're
Right.
talking about maybe one at bat. So maybe it's just that's just taking too much from that one in particular moment. But that being said, like with Raleigh, yeah, you see, like, okay, yeah, see, he swings and missing a lot. That's in his game, and he's outproducing his batting average, but the power is obviously still going to be there. With PCA, it's like, okay, is he overperforming his power? Is there ever going to be another 27 home run season
Right.
again? I mean, the barrel rate is still amazing at 85%, 14 percentile. So maybe that's in the cards, but I don't know. 258 might be high. It might be pretty similar to a Raleigh situation, and the hard hit rate and bat speed isn't what Raleigh's is. But he makes up for it in other areas with the speed and that power rate there, like we were referencing. So I don't think there's whereas before it looked like maybe he was on his way to like a top 5 pick. Now it's like, okay, Pico Armstrong back in the first round. I would feel comfortable with that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I agree. In a vacuum, for me, I will not want Pete Crow Armstrong over like a Kyle Tucker,
No,
but
absolutely not.
but
Agree.
but I'm just curious if the hype of like the power speed combo will, and just the youth and a little bit of like the mystery box, if people will think there's more of a ceiling for PCA. But if that's the case, he really has to turn it around in the last 6 weeks. Otherwise, that's going to follow him all off season in terms of like draft prep, and he'll probably be more like middle second round if he just doesn't break out of like the bad slump and turn the corner, because then everybody will be like, yeah, once he got exposed, he didn't adjust back. Okay, so to keep it rolling here, Kyle Schwarber, man. Yeah, we knew that we felt like we had the book on Schwarber. Draft ADP was 69, and he has been the 6th overall player in the player rater. I think this one is a tough one because Schwarber is doing, he's kind of the Cal Raleigh of the outfield. 32 years old. So age is a little bit of a factor, but I think we're going to see Schwarber end up with high 40s homers. He's already at 10 steals, 250 average, and it's 2 seasons in a row that he's had the average around 250. So maybe I'm running a little wild with having Schwarber at 8 in the first round, but do you think Schwarber cracks the first round in general next year, given that, the book's out? It's definitely a high watermark type of year. He's aging a little bit, but I think you can probably project him for 42 homers, a 250 average, and 7 or 8 steals.
I love Schwarber. I think I will take him. I wish I had more shares of Schwarber this year. Like, he was so obvious a player that I should have been all over, as far as like, the fantasy baseball community being ageist, like boring, like, there's some flaws to his game. Like, he is Ortiz. He
Totally.
is like, this decade's Ortiz.
Such a good hitter. Yeah.
That being said, there's no way that I think he gets put in the first round next year. I think no,
You don't think he cracks it, even if he
no,
goes nuts and gets 50 homers?
no.
Just everyone knows
I
who
don't think
Schwarber is.
so. I think that there's too much concern of like, a 200 batting average, 218 like he had in 2022, 2023. This is a career, this is a walk year, right? So, it's the last year of his deal. So we'll see where he ends up, and I think that maybe you would definitely have to expect some regression off the career best 162 WRC plus. So I think
20% barrel rate, Steve.
yeah,
20%
yeah, and
barrel
he's
rate.
done that before. He's had a 20% barrel rate before, so it's not new for him. But I just don't see the fantasy community putting a 33-year-old batting average liability. That's like I don't see. I could see Raleigh not being a first rounder, and I can't see non-catcher Kyle Raleigh being a first rounder. I don't know, and maybe it's weird that I'm so in on Schwarber and out on Raleigh, but Schwarber has been doing this for years. Like this is exactly who he is. Like he is a 45 homer hitter that has a batting average range from 200 to 260. It is nice though that the last 2 years have been around 250. So maybe that's what you could project him for. But as much as I love Schwarber, we have seen some of the downswings too. So I just can't see him being put in the first round, especially like the 10 steals are nice, but he had 5 total the last 2.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it is odd how his production is not all that different, but he's delivered 6 overall value. Like I'm curious what he delivered last year. I wonder.
Yeah, let me see if I
That'd be
can
an
pull up
interesting
that.
thing to pull up.
If I
Because
could pull up the player rater from last year.
was
So
there a
15
big
team
discount this year with him going
pitcher.
69 overall?
Why can't I see 2024? Can I? No. No, that's fine. But I
Yeah,
can't
we can
see
look it up later.
the player rater for last year, at least very quickly
But
on
I think you could
Fangraphs.
you could theorize that if what he's done, I mean, I guess he's ahead of his homer pace. He had 38 last year, he has 42, and it's mid-August. So it's like we're getting the best of his power years along with the good batting average and then some steals to boot. So yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. We'll see what he does the rest of the way. Because if he flirts with high 40s, holds the batting average, has the steals, we might see his most expensive draft day price, but it's probably fair that it won't be first round. I think that's fair. Okay, other newcomers. We got Junior Caminero. We got James Wood. Let's kind of round out with
Yeah.
those two kind of youngster up and comers. Caminero's been at 17. Definitely has found his power groove in the past few months. James Wood, on the other hand, is kind of going through a slump.
Similar to PCA, like the first one of the year, kind of, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But he's been 21st overall. So what do you make of these two, Junior Caminero and James Wood, in terms of do you think either one of them crack the first round?
Yeah, I think Wood is a first rounder for me. It just seems like that steady. Sometimes you get in trouble with this, with like with Julio Rodriguez as a warning sign, right? Like to just project
growth.
project growth each year, right? But it really looks like Wood is 22 years old, has 25 homers, 14 steals, and an 847 OPS. Yeah, the K rate is a little bit high, and it's been high recently, but there's too much to like for someone that's 22 years old, has a 17% barrel rate, a 55% hard hit percentage, a 118 max EV. Like this is the player that you make in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you could probably project some growth with the strikeout rate, considering it's a 12% swing strike rate and the 30% K rate. He might be able to get that down a little bit, and I could see him becoming, as he ages, figuring out how to pair that a little bit. It does come at some cost, like we talk about with Tatis, but Wood is just so good at 22 years old that he's firmly in the back end of my first round
Okay.
for next year.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see that batting average take a step forward. He's not like a plus in speed, and that's reflected not only in the. I mean, I know 14 steals is solid, but he's been caught 5 times, and last year he had 14, and he was caught 8 times. So there's a little bit of a question mark. Like he's not like an out and out burner where he's like a 40-30 career year type of thing, right? So like
Yeah.
I think next year kind of the rosy outlook would be the K rate improves, like you're saying. Maybe it's more like a 275, 35, or even 40 homers with like 15 to 20 steals. So what is that? I mean, it's like a mini Soto in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It's like a Soda with worse plate skills, or
Yeah.
Soda with a
Okay.
worse strikeout rate because he does walk a good amount of time. Soda with
Yeah.
a high 20s K rate and 20 steal potential.
Okay. Yeah. I like it. And I think that's worthy for the turn.
What
And then
about what
Cam
about Caminero? What about Caminero for you? I'm interested in your thoughts on him.
I mean, I think for one, having rostered him, I feel like every single one of the homers is a solo shot, which is frustrating. Like he's got 33 homers and 81 RBIs. I guess 81 is
Pretty good. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 262 batting average. I mean, he's not going to give you steals, so that's going to
Mhm.
hurt him.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of who this comp would be, but I do think that Caminero had to get through um what was well, I guess honestly, now that you look at it, it was a rough April where it was 232 average, but he still had the 6 homers. He's actually been more steady than I thought on the
Yeah.
power.
The power has
Um
been pretty consistent, maybe outside
mhm.
like that first, maybe like May. I forget whether it's May or April. That was a
Yeah.
little rough for him,
So
but
if he's a true 40 homer guy and
yeah,
a 260 average,
it's close. I think it's more back end second round, but maybe there's some potential. Like he
yeah,
does swing at absolutely everything and still doesn't strike out that much, which is crazy. Like
right.
maybe there's some growth there. Like the ground balls are insane. Like he's doing this. Actually, wow, they're not as bad as I thought. A 46.8%. That he's really improved on that. Right, because that was a concern like after his rookie year when he had like a 61% ground ball percentage, and he does pull the ball in the air a lot. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's
I
impressive.
mean,
I just always see the tweet of like how many double plays Junior Caminero is grounded to. Maybe that's why he has so many solo home runs.
yeah, right.
Um, I think
Yeah,
he's like on pace to set the record for most double plays or like the most in a while. So
he's I think it's encouraging that his slug is even better on breaking balls than it is fastballs. Like I like that he does damage on those, primary and secondaries. Um he's a tricky comp. I honestly can't think of a guy that's like in recent memory that's, if we're gonna call him 40 homer 260 chipping in on speed. Um just nothing comes to mind, but I think he's probably just gonna be early second round. It's a plus that he's third base, to address a position early on. And he's also, 22 years old, but he doesn't have the 18% barrel rate that Wood does or that some of those other guys does. So um, he's just got that ridiculous bat speed. Yeah,
yeah,
I think Caminero is going to be early second round, and I kind of like it honestly. The more that I'm looking at like the full profile,
his home run spray chart is a thing of beauty. It's just like
yeah,
basically one home run to like every spot of the field. It's
you're
crazy.
yeah, you're right. It's And that's such a good sign of like true power, right? It hit to all fields. It's like a young Goldschmidt or something. But yeah, you'd love to see as he grows and like naturally you have to say that a player like this with how much he was hyped is going to take steps forward, kind of like we were saying with Wood. And I think if he can move that average up, that's when you start getting into like, all right, a 280 guy who can hit 40 homers, that's a first rounder.
Yeah. There needs to be some growth in batting average, strikeout rates somewhere along there. There's like another
for sure.
Another step to take for him, as exciting as 33 homers on August 12th for a 22-year-old is. Crazy. Wood and Caminero are both 22 years old. I think this may not be a question for long whether those guys are first rounders, right?
Yep. I agree. All right. So Steve, I don't think we have time to get into the pitchers because we're running super long, but we'll at least round out because we've talked about it a few times. My crystal ball first round, which I think I've made changes on the fly, but I'll read them as I had them. Judge at 1, Ohtani at 2, Cal Raleigh being a stab pick at 3 for some catcher enthusiasts, Elly at 4. I got Tarik Skubal at 5 because I think his 2 seasons in a row as SP1 might be enough for people to say he jumps the pack of bats that I have following, which is PCA. That one, I think I would switch with Soto probably. I think you've talked me into that one.
Yeah.
I think Bobby Wood at 7 is maybe a little late. You bring up good points there. But I do think that Skubal will have some tax next year, in my opinion. Schwarber at 8, Soto at 9, J-Ram. I feel like the oatmeal is going to unfairly snag him on where he lands. It might not be as late as 10, but by all accounts, he probably should be going 5, and he will go like 7, 8, 9 territory, in my opinion. And then I think there's going to be pitchers that get pushed up next year. I think Wheeler and Skeens and Crochet, I have all of them in the first round, kind of a throwback to when we had like the Kershaw, Kluber, Sale days where Scherzer, where like there were a lot of people trying to snag SP1s in the back of the first round. I think it's kind of ripe for that like you kind of have to squint at some of those bats between like 10 and 18, but there's like a clear top 5 pitching, so I could see that happening. And then I had Kyle Tucker at 13. I will have him higher than that personally. And I threw Machado at 15, but I think he's another oatmeal one. I think you're right that it's probably a James Wood situation of who's going to move in there. But Steve, why don't you rip through yours, and then we'll kind of round out the show here.
I have Judge, Ohtani, Elly, J-Ram, Witt, Tucker, who we're still really high on, Soto, Raleigh, PCA. They did back-to-back pitchers, Crochet and Skeens at 10 and 11, J-Rod at 12, Wood at 13, Carroll at 14, 15 is Churio. Carroll and Churio, we really didn't hit on it. We could have done a whole other show on this, honestly. Like, I think they're still amazing upside with the two of them. They're just both battled some injuries. Like Carroll was looking like he's on the way and proving everyone that the shoulder was no issue, and sort of cooled off a bit. But I still think those guys upside as like 5 category contributors need to be considered for the first round.
Very nice. Yeah. I think that's a good call.
Only 14 steals for Corbin Carroll this year. Wow. I am surprised by that. Yeah.
It is
wild.
I
do not know why he is not running. That is strange for a guy that stole 54 in 155 games and 35 last year. Not a good trend to be on as far as steals wise. But, the bat looks great.
Yeah. That's one for us to look into at a later date. Any reason you don't have Skubal? Is that just oversight, or are you actually fading there?
Oversight probably, and just the fact that I kind of just filled in with 2 pitchers.
Through them. Okay. Yeah.
I think I prefer. I think if I had to take a pitcher first, it would probably be Skeens. I'd flip those 2, even though that was my list, just based on like age.
Yeah.
It'd probably be like Skeens, Skubal, then Crochet.
Okay.
Sure.
I like it. Yeah. But you got a little more pitching in there too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fun show. As you guys can tell, it's hard for us to not talk about these high-end guys, but Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week and through the rest of the regular season. But for episode 189, thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys. Later.